Hi, I'm the Executive Director of Green Zone Institute, Greg Heffron. And in this presentation, we're really using the metaphor of health to get at how communication breakdown happens within us. We break down the communication within us first, and then that begins to break down the communication between ourselves and others. And here we're looking at the root cause of how communication breakdown happens. And then we're looking at how, once that breakdown happens, it can become infectious. So we're using this model of an infectious disease to look at how it spreads, and how, by coming back to ourself, we can actually heal the root cause so that it doesn't break out, become an outbreak, become an epidemic, become a pandemic, as we all know that toxic communication can be at times. So this is a very important message for this moment in history, and I hope that you appreciate it very much and use it in your life.
I thought today actually we would talk about health, the metaphor of health. And it's a useful metaphor. It's kind of our theme for the week. And Susan brought it up in her video the other day when she was talking about going into the surgery and, you know, this idea of fundamental healthiness. That is really our view. Our view is that the green light is our fundamental health. And progressively, the yellow light and the red light are when we start to drift away from our innate healthy state. So we're just going to work with that metaphor. I hope that's useful. And you actually, very interesting. You can't see it very well on video, but I'm having this eye situation today. And my eye was actually beet red when I woke up this morning. So this is on my mind. And I want to just talk about it briefly. I don't want to go into a whole thing about it, but just this is part of a chronic condition. And it kind of comes and goes. And like, you know, many conditions, I'm sure many of you have. But it comes and goes, and I've tried many different things, and nothing seems to quite heal it. And I've talked to different doctors and practitioners and read things, whatever. I tried things, nothing seems to work. Everything almost seems to make it worse. And part of what happened is I kind of messed with it yesterday with the attempt to make it better. It was having problems. I thought, well, I'll just try this and it'll make it better, but actually it made it worse. And, you know, as life goes sometimes, where we try something to make things better, but we actually don't understand what's going on. We don't understand the nature of how to return to health. And so we inflame a situation. So I want us to really think about fundamental health today, and then also think about the value of what Susan's given us here. That Susan has given us clear instructions, like how to get from here to there. And that's hard to find in this world. It's hard to find good advice for chronic things that go on and cause us all sorts of trouble. You know, okay, and then you try this and you try that. And as you learn, sometimes there's a lot of bad advice that takes you away from your health. Or you might try your own thing and it doesn't work. But we've got here in mindful communication, we've got some really good basic advice. And I just want to celebrate that as we go forward today. So let's talk about fundamental healthiness. And let's just think about our bodies. You know, we often focus on our bodies in terms of these things that are going wrong. And we don't understand how much is going right. You know, we don't even begin to appreciate all of what's working. You know, I'm focusing on this eye, but what about this eye? This eye's great. Look at how great this eye is. You know, it's so clear and, you know, white, and it focuses really well, and I can see you all. You know, there's all these things going on that are great. There's my, you know, there's my ears are doing well right now. Or, you know, my hand is good. You know, there's all this range of healthiness that's happening. And we get hyper fixated on these problematic events, these problems that are going on. And those become a kind of obsession. You know, those become the reason why things are bad. You know, maybe things are bad. Maybe things are basically bad. So I wanted to take a moment to really connect in with this fundamental healthiness. What is the green light? What is the green light that happens when we become mindful and when we connect back with ourselves? The green light is actually, it's the way that your lungs are working right now. You know, that there's this flow. Things come in, and then there's this exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and then things go out, and they come in, and they go out. And, you know, how often is this going on? Well, a lot, right? We just take it for granted. These lungs are just working and working and working. How long have they been working? Our whole lives. You know, and our heart, the blood flowing in our bodies, flowing through our heart. You know, does our heart take days off? It really doesn't. Does it take 5 seconds off? It really mostly doesn't. And so there's this flow, this natural flow and exchange. And the green light, understanding this in our experience, is that natural. We are all doing it, actually. Even pretty confused people are doing it at some level because they have to, just to navigate through their world. You know, very confused people still have to get around, and they have to understand where the bathroom is, or, you know, just very basic things. You know, they say, I would like a turkey sandwich. And you know what I mean? Just like basic levels. And, you know, please could I get mustard on that? Just simple. And yes, the confusion can seem very overwhelming to us because it can be very destructive. The red light can be incredibly, overwhelmingly, even kind of, you know, insanely destructive. And yet we just want to feel this basis. We have this foundation as human beings of goodness, of this simple exchange with others. You know, even just the looks you give getting on or off a bus to go, oh, who's going to go next? You know, the basics of a child that's running down the sidewalk, and you move and interact, and you know, even with a young child, there's an exchange, and they're exchanging because it's natural, because it's human, because we don't have to actually fundamentally be taught how to have a body, a heart, and a mind. It just comes with us. And often we get taught how to ignore these things, but they are natural. They are good. Nobody teaches us to breathe. We come into the world breathing. It's very good. So, so we'll come back to this. We're going to do an exercise later on, but I just wanted to set that as kind of the groundwork before we talk about other things here. What I'd like to do is to actually share this diagram with you. That is something we talk about often in our programs, and this is about pain. So we're gonna really talk about pain, which is a lot of what drives our fear. Fear of pain, and fear of pain can really take us into the yellow light, right, and then eventually into the red light. But I want to focus on the idea, like, the idea that we carry around that pain is wrong, pain is somehow a mistake. I'm feeling pain. Think of an interaction with somebody that's painful in a very ordinary way. Actually, okay, now I have to tell a story because I think it's funny. So actually, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Okay, here's a painful story, and this I hope this is funny. So I went to the bicycle shop to try to get a bicycle pump and a bag because somebody stole my bag off my bike. And so I walked to the shop, it's a few blocks away, and they didn't have bicycle pumps or bags, which I was very surprised by. It's a bicycle shop, so I don't know, you just assume. And there was a gentleman who was outside the door, might have been one of the owners, I don't know. And he was limiting how many people could come into the store because of COVID. So when I walked out, after finding no bicycle pump, he said, "Oh, did you find everything?" And I said, "No, I'm looking for a pump and a bag." And he said, "Oh, well, there's the other bike shop that's about 5 blocks away." And I said, "Oh, I don't think I have time to go down there right now, but I'll go some other time." Okay, so thus far it's a very normal interaction, right? Actually, the rest of it's normal too. And he basically just sort of looked at me and said, he didn't say anything, he just went, kind of smirked at the idea that I wasn't going to walk a few blocks further to the other store. And I felt myself react, and in my mind came all the reasons that I couldn't go down to the other store right then. I had to get back for a meeting. And I had just went to the bank and got change to use in the washing and drying machine in my building to do laundry. And I had several of these heavy things of quarters in my pocket, and they were kind of uncomfortable to walk with. And on, right? And what I find funny and so normal and so ridiculous and so basic was the extent to which I created drama out of this situation in my mind. And because, of course, we talk about these things from our perspective, there was something just so ridiculous about it, to see how habitual it was. Well, why didn't he understand? Like, I have all sorts of things, and there's reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing, and little bits of edging into, like, maybe he's got a problem, trying to push it outward, and then kind of collapsing back into, but I'm not bad, I'm good, I have my reasons. But I mean, the whole thing was so ridiculous. Honestly, it was really ridiculous. That in a way, it highlighted to me this idea of how much can come out of nothing, how much comes out of just basically literally nothing? I've never met this person. I may never meet him again. I honestly probably won't go back to the bike store that doesn't have bike pumps. So it's a moot point. Everything about it is moot. And still I create this much drama. You know, so here, let's go back to our diagram and talk about pain. So the pain that I felt with him, the initial pain, is the pain of breaking attunement. That he and I disconnected. And I'll go out on a limb and I'll say that he broke attunement with me for whatever reason. That's not a heresy from our perspective to actually make that kind of assessment. You do need to make that assessment sometimes. So let's say he had a little tiny, very tiny red light. And what that meant is that we were no longer in alignment with each other. So the natural state from our perspective is to feel pain. And that's like a little wound. And you can see in this case, the wound is so tiny. I actually honestly wouldn't have remembered it except that I thought that I would like to talk to you all about this. And you know, that's how small it was. Now that initial wound is not a huge problem. It's really not something that is going to cause me any harm over time. So we have to understand that. And the reason why is because from these teachings, I have learned how to take care of that wound. You know, I've learned how to even to contemplate it at the level that I'm talking about now, and that we all know how to do with ourselves, with our own experience. Small wounds are quite workable. How do I care for myself? How do I hold the vulnerability of that pain so that it doesn't devolve into self-aggression? Maybe I'm a fundamentally bad person. No, I don't think that that's true. Maybe I have little sparks of habitual feeling around that, but I've really examined that. I don't think that's fundamentally true, because I don't want to walk to the bike shop today, you know. So I actually don't, you know, I can work at that level. And if there's still that feeling, I can hold that feeling. I can surround that feeling with care. I could turn to my green zone friends, you know, good friends in my life, trusted people, and bring that kind of self-aggression into that cradle of kindness, into that, you know, green zone where it can be held properly and I can examine it further and see through it, learning how to see through it. So that's the idea, that like this wound could be taken care of properly. But we want to talk about the idea of what happens when we don't take care of it properly. And this is our ongoing theme right now, is that little tiny wounds can become infected. And even very strong people can be completely taken down by a tiny little wound. Or you could say, you know, if your immune system doesn't know how to deal with things, if your immune system is out of balance, you can't fight a very simple infection. And this is when we don't understand how to take care of ourselves, and we haven't actually provided ourselves the resources we need to support these moments of disconnection. So the question then becomes, how do I create a healthy environment for myself? How do I create a healthy environment for others so that little wounds don't become raging infections? right? And I want to say that this is and Susan says this all the time, this is a public health issue, that these things spread. And when they spread, that's when they become dangerous. You know, a little wound is nothing. Literally, it can almost be like a growth experience. If we know how to properly deal with it, it can actually become a positive. Like, wow, something challenged me and I learned how to connect with myself at a deeper level so that I'll be more resilient next time. But when the wound keeps getting neglected and neglected and neglected, and it starts to spread to others, you know, my red light triggers somebody else's red light, who triggers somebody else's red light, and it can go all the way up to the level of nations, or one can even say the whole world. That's when it becomes literally deeply dangerous. So what I want to say today, and we're almost done with my part, is the idea that you are all frontline workers in this. Now, you may not feel like, you know, you're an expert. You may not feel like you're, you know, you even understand this stuff well enough. But that's fine. Like, you're frontline workers the way that, you know, the people at the grocery store are there to get people food. You know, the way that the people at the post office are there to help the mail get from one place to another. Like, you're there even at a basic level to be able to see what's going on and to provide really basic levels of care for yourself first and foremost, so that you're strong, so that you're healthy. But then to also extend that health in situations where these emotional contagions start running around and taking over our communities and our families, our friendships, our what we see online, and they start to bring people down. And what can you do? Now, you're not a miracle worker, and you can't snap your fingers and make it all go away. So maybe it's very small what you can do in a given situation. Maybe it's just very tiny. And honestly, like we're doing with Susan today, we're not there with her in the operating room. What we can do is feel for her and extend her our care and kindness. And we can do that. Sometimes that's all we can do in large situations. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is to actually feel and aspire. Like, I wish I knew what to do. May I someday know what to do in this situation. But right now I don't, so I can't offer anything because I honestly don't know. I don't know what to do. And then, you know, also feel the strength of building our humanity, our goodness, our also increasingly, we don't talk about this, we haven't talked about this so much, but bravery, building our bravery over time. Then we can start to reach out more. In fact, we will want to reach out more and engage at various levels. And that could become very powerful if we are coming from a basis of this kind of inner health. And that's when you really start to rouse people's energy to change large-scale situations. We've seen a lot of this in the United States recently. And we've seen very positive examples. We've seen negative examples. You know, you have your own interpretation of that. That's great. So we have to do it from our own perspective. So how to support that health as frontline workers in this large-scale situation? That's our question. This is an important clarification. Like, what do we mean by we first? Because you're talking about roles in a way that I don't think there's any disagreement. In fact, I've literally heard Susan many times say, with regard to mindful communication, you know, sometimes we're the doctor and sometimes we're the patient. And those are different roles, and we need to play different roles in those situations. Sometimes we're the parent, sometimes we're the child. And yeah, and there can be there can be a red light of ignoring that, ignoring the fact that they're separate roles and that they need to be played differently. You know, your patients need you to maybe uphold a certain kind of authority so that they can trust that what you're telling them to do is going to be beneficial, and then they'll actually do it, and then they'll benefit. And that's actually great. You know, we would say the we first perspective in that situation is that, you know, that for you to do that properly, you have to be there, like you were talking about, you're still there. You have to be there, you have to have all of your faculties working so that you can assess the situation properly, really understand, like even being able to see that they don't trust you and knowing how to work skillfully with that. That not only do you need to be there for that, but actually it benefits you to be there and to play that role skillfully so that you can help, like helping, like the we first view is helping them is helping us. Helping somebody else is helping myself. You know, and that the red light version of that would be helping somebody else and denigrating myself. And that's, you know, we go into the mindless heart pattern. And that's really that's a totally different thing. You can't be a skillful physician in a mindless heart pattern. You have to still be connected. So the we first view is, I think, acknowledges those roles. And you're absolutely right, Mary. Because we sometimes shift into that. If you're the mother and the baby's crying and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you just want to go back to sleep and you can't. And, you know, okay, well, me first says I can go back to sleep and ignore the crying baby. But the truth is, I have to shut down some part of myself to do that. So in some ways, it's not helping me. It's kind of disconnecting me. I have to actually break my inner connection to ignore that baby. And so actually what it does is it harms myself as well as harming the baby. So you could say it's neither you first nor me first. And the we first view says, okay, I'm in this role. The baby can't do it for themselves. I'm paying attention to my natural responses here of compassion and love for my baby. I've got to actually work my way through this, even though I'm tired and I'm frustrated. And this is the 6th night in a row, and I'm going out of my mind. I'm going bonkers. How am I going to hold this together? But I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to keep working with it. And how do I support myself? Maybe I need further support in this. Maybe I need better advice. Maybe I need my partner to do it. You know, maybe I need to, you know, get help from my mother-in-law or something, you know, whatever. So then I am part of the equation. My health is part of the equation. And this is like where physicians, you know, and you know this more than anybody, physicians need to support themselves. They need to take care of themselves. They need to be healthy. We need physicians to be healthy and strong. So, and how, you know, and then how can we support physicians so that they are healthy and strong, and then they can help us? That's kind of the we first view.
This issue of health and how to be healthy and what is healthy communication is so vital right now. I think there's a tremendous misunderstandings about this. You know, somebody says, well, I need to be genuine, and my version of genuine is being really hateful. But, you know, I'm genuinely hateful. And, you know, this can be the opposite of mindfulness, actually. It can be mindlessness becoming a virtue. And, you know, our world is, to a large degree, run by this kind of shutdown communication. You could barely call it communication, to be honest, because it's not connecting both sides of the conversation. So this issue of health should be taken deeply into us and really contemplated in every situation. I hope that you take what we talked about here into every situation and say, is there an infection here that's starting to run wild? Is this the beginning of an epidemic in a family? Is this the beginning of an epidemic in a community, in a household? And, or whatever, politically, all these things. And what can I do to actually get to the root, to really get to the root of what is causing this pandemic, what is driving it, what are the wounds that are driving it, and how can we address those wounds so that this doesn't sweep across and affect many people? It's really what we need right now. You are really what we need right now, and I hope you feel encouraged to give this a try.